Not aware of that. They've got one at the door.
And then just remove it a pin at a time.
Actually, we put a couple of studs in here. And put a little board on the cross. Three, with your switch.
Put your digit.
Try to spend about 10-15 minutes. We'll talk about the clubs. After both of us spoke, then we'll stop, go to questions, and shortly after that, off to the fest floor. I would like to open with a prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to get together with friends, the joy and the love to share each other here. Wonderful opportunity for one of the great purposes you put us here. I thank you for Jesus Christ, who has given me the opportunity to realize the abundance of love that we have. I thank you. Amen. Okay, did want to mention, it's kind of a personal matter, but some of you close to me know that we had a thing yesterday. I was a little down in spirits. Yesterday morning, my wife's mother is down in Sun City. We got a call about 10 o'clock. She went into surgery. Along about 5 in the afternoon, I got the bad news. Operation went fine. My mother-in-law is just great.
That's the bad news, but the good news.
Okay. Color computer clubs. 2 points. The first, necessary to a group to holding any size is a newsletter of some sort. If it's 1 page, 2 pages, 10 would be great if it's 30 or 40. But you do need to have something that reaches out to people that can't come to meetings. We went about 9 months, I think, started a newsletter because we had people in town that just couldn't. We had to set a meeting day. For a while it was Tuesday nights. We had people couldn't come in Tuesday but could come in on the weekend. That kept those people as members. We moved to Saturdays. We had people that couldn't come in on that Saturday, that worked Saturdays or whatever. Kept those people as well. It gave us an opportunity to reach out to, we've always been mid-Iowa members around here. Gene Lund from Ames, Bob Hartwood on north to Boone. These people have been with us since the first year. I think primarily out of the newsletter. If they can't get to a meeting, they still have a contact. I am living proof. You don't have to be able to spell to write a newsletter. I don't know, I'm a cement contractor. People say they can't write articles. If you like things about the color computer, that's all you got to do is sit down and write what I like about this program, what I did here, what I did there. And believe it or not, there's a lot of people that are really interested in it. And just that simple. Doesn't have to be a highfalutin technical review. As a matter of fact, those little I like this because and does this and that for me are more interesting to the general populace because the technical stuff goes over their head anyway. Second point is unity and trying to work around computer prejudice. This was not so much a problem in the beginning. It is a problem that is coming to bear a little more now as CoCo groups are getting smaller. Computer prejudice, I mean by that, there are people who use RS-DOS, have no interest in OS9, like myself. That does not mean I want to exclude OS9 or any other language for that matter. I would club keeping OS9 in the group has kept a lot of people. You have a lot of people on the bridge. We have people that dabble with OS9, want to know more about it. We need guys like James Jones, Boise Petrie, and thankfully we've got guys like James Jones. There are more people like him. Has an MM1, works for Microware. yet he holds meets and goes from the simplest, how do you configure this, how do you set up that, really works with us little RS-DOSers, don't know a whole lot about it. What I have seen in some distant groups is kind of a growing to OS 9, and they don't want anything to do with RS-DOS. I've even got flack from one guy uses RS-DOS quite a bit, got upset because I left him a message in the RS portion of Delphi rather than over the OS. Well, I never go down there. Somebody had to tell me. Oh, gee, I'm sorry. I don't know. You remember the early days on the BBSs kicking around computers and every computer's a piece of trash and this and that. And I used to think, you know, every doctor's office ought to install a CoCo and all that in the beginning, but I've grown to learn that there's different computers that are very applicable for different people, and there's, gosh, Commodore, for all that I think it isn't, is great for a lot of people. The Radio Shack computer just won't work for them. I'm very glad that they made the Radio Shack computer the capabilities it has. It's great for me, and I wouldn't want something that has the encumbrances of a Commodore. But it's different computers for different people, and languages work the same way. I don't know that. You've just got to keep incorporating those languages, computers as well, although we are kind of guilty of stepping beyond the CoCo 2. Our support disk is CoCo 3 only, and primarily that is what we support. But you need to keep that interest as broad spread as possible, keep the door open for whatever they want to use the color computer for, and you're going to have more members. Boise, or Carl, that's about all I've got to say. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, Jerry went over the newsletters. I'll go over the clubs a little bit. See inside. Kind of stole part of my speech there. I will say one thing about newsletters, though. They are very important. And they are not easy to produce. Anybody that produces a newsletter, my hat is off to you, and I'm going to get involved in one pretty soon too. So, actually, though, what clubs are all about is support. And unfortunately, our community is going to lose some support in the Rainbow. If anybody here didn't know that the Rainbow is going to be having its last issue soon, I'm telling you, they are. And with the passing of Rainbow, the newsletters and small magazines are going to become much more important. And club support is going to be it. You're going to have services like Delphi, CompuServe, but they can't hold a community together. It's the clubs being able to call somebody for help, making the meetings, having the newsletter sent to you. These are all important things. And in the future, this is where your support is going to come from. There's no reason why you can't join more than one club. I'm living proof. I belong to 6 of them. Maybe 7. I can't remember if I signed up for Atlanta or not.
Did you get a newsletter from it?
No. So I might not. But the intention was there, if not, if I didn't have the time to do it. I feel that any club that can put on a fest is a national club. So basically there's what? Four different clubs doing that. There's the one up in the Pacific Northwest, you got Mid-Iowa here, you've got the Glen side, and the Atlantic Computer Society. And those are the 4, what I would consider to be national clubs. And anybody that's looking for support, those are the clubs to look towards. There's no reason why you can't join more than one of them. But I believe local clubs also play a very important role, because it's nice to be able to go to a meeting and sit down with 6 other people and say, hey, I've got a problem. You know, I can't get OS9 to boot anymore. It booted the other day and it doesn't boot today. I've never had that problem, have I, Paul? And, you know, a club doesn't have to be big to be able to help each other. And possibly the small local clubs don't need to have a big newsletter. I mean, something like Glenside or Mid-Iowa, they need a good-sized newsletter because we're reaching out to people throughout the nation, or in Glenside's case, throughout the world. And you need a good, strong newsletter to hold everything together, to make it worth the people's while to join the club. Here, in a small local club, most people want to make the meetings. If they don't make the meeting, a small summary of what happened at the meeting and who did what usually suffices. And right now, you're looking at a community that is going to keep getting smaller. Unless you open your doors to other computers like the 68K machines, you are going to shrink and shrink. But that doesn't mean that the community has to die. We have Timex Sinclair users in our group, one in particular, they can attest to this thing. I never even saw Timex Sinclair until after they were dead. And boy, have I seen them now. And I never realized the capabilities of that computer. And it's just like Terry said, the CoCo isn't for everybody. My wife is an astrologer. Commodore 64 suits her purposes much better because there's a lot of astrology software written for the Commodore 64. The CoCo never had to develop. A lot of astrologers had Commodore 64, so for her to buy a CoCo would have been ridiculous. You know? But if you want to learn computers, the CoCo was the best computer on the market. It had an excellent basic language. It was easy to interface, easy to write programs on, and it had all sorts of power that you could tap. Did I say was? Is. It is. It still is. Basic 09. Excellent structured language. You get it with OS 9. I mean, you know, you don't have to go out and buy it. You buy OS 9, you've got your language. If you go into college later on, you want to learn the structured language, if you learned OS Basic 09, you're 3/4 of the way there already. You're thinking the right way because you can't write programs unless they're structured. But this is supposed to be about CoCo clubs. Okay. Get back to CoCo clubs, Carl. Okay. We have, right now, before the board of Glenside, there's supposed to be a vote, we're restructuring the whole club. The reason for that is the larger your club grows, the harder it is to manage it. This is why so many organizations have gone under in the past. I'm going to make this real easy. If you have a national organization, international organization, you have to have central control. If you look at any large business, they have a main office where all executive officers are. They don't have executive officers out here and out there and over there. They're all in one central location so that they can get together, sit down and say, we have to do this, we have to do that, and steer the company. It doesn't work by long distance. American management has learned this. They've tried it in the past. Most of those companies have failed. There are a few rare instances, but very rare, where you will find a company that is progressive enough and has people that are dedicated enough to make something like that work. But in general, it won't. That's why you have to keep the core of any organization that grows in one area. So that's what the Glenside Club is working on right now. We will not have officers that can't attend the board meetings. Not necessarily club meetings, at least board meetings. And structure. People have to know what their jobs are. It has to be well-defined. Just like your organization in any large business. You have your presidents, your vice presidents, your comptroller, they all know what they're supposed to do. There isn't any, well, this week you're going to do this, next week you're going to do it. No. Jobs are defined. They are given their jobs, and they're supposed to do their jobs. And the president then says, okay, did you finish your job? If you didn't, get on it. So basically, the biggest thing about a club as it grows is to keep track of the site, that you have to be organized. If you are elected to one of these positions, first of all, you accepted the nomination. When you did that, you made a commitment to your fellow club members that you would do the best job that you could. Okay? Nobody twisted your arm and said, you have to take this job. It's just like volunteering. If you volunteer, you're supposed to do the best you can. That's the way I look at it. It's not a popularity contest. There's a lot of work to run a large club. Anybody that goes into it thinking that when they get elected to one of these positions that they can sit back there, right, Eddie? It doesn't happen. I mean, there are just too many demands on your time. You get phone calls from people that you've never heard of before at bad times, you know. But you have to remember, you volunteered for it, you know. And if you can't fulfill the duties of your office, the best thing you can do is step down. You don't even have to make any explanations other than to say, I just don't have the time to do it. The worst thing you can do as an officer of the club, if you don't have the time, is to stay in that position. Let somebody else have it that has the time. I've seen too many clubs go under because the president or vice president doesn't have the time to do what he needs to do. When things don't get done, then members stop coming to the meetings. Next year, they don't renew their membership because they feel that they were gypped. It's a sad situation. So you really have three key ingredients. You have to have dedicated people, people that are willing to work, and we're all doing this for free. You know, it's a lot of demands on your time, demands on your money too. You know, we don't. Most people that are in the offices don't get recompense for all the phone calls they make, letters that they mail, and stuff like that. I wish I could keep track of all the phone calls I make, so I could get some of that money back. We have a lot of demands on your time. You've got to have dedication, people that are dedicated to do the job. You've got to have people that have the time to do the job. This is as important as the dedication and willingness is to actually physically have the time. We all have run into that position. Gee, I'd really like to do that. I know I can do it, but I just don't have the time. And you have to have an organization, a structured organization that is able to support itself. By supporting itself, I mean that people have to know what they're expected to do, you know, even as members. If you live in the area, you know, there's a meeting, hey, we'd really like you to get there so that there's not just 5 people in the room, you know, because if that happens, eventually there'll be 4, then there'll be 3, then the president will be there by himself if he shows up.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah. So basically what it all boils down to is, guys, hey, if you are in a club, support the club. Make the club support you. If you're not happy with what's happening in the club, make your views known. Don't be quiet. Get involved. These clubs have to take us through the next era. Who knows? Maybe there'll be something after this. Maybe I'm not going to say it's possible. I've seen rebirth before. You never know. Somebody might come out with a 6309 machine that hits it big. And then the CoCo will be right there again. let's see what happens.
What do you do when the guy you assign a job just doesn't do it?
Impeachment. Oh, seriously, if you have a person that doesn't do the job, the first duty of the president is to talk to him and say, hey, we need you to do the job. If you can't do the job, it would be much better for the club and everybody else involved if you would step down and let somebody else take over the job that has the time and the willingness to do it. Like I said, a lot of times, it's not that the person isn't willing to do it and doesn't want to do it. A lot of times you just get caught up, and I'm sure you know this yourself, you just don't have physically the time. There's only 24 hours in a day. If you're committed to 23 of them, 1 hour of sleep isn't enough. I've run into the situation myself with this upcoming fest in Chicago where I'm going 12 hours at work, come home, make phone calls to vendors, make phone calls to other people, get phone calls from the president, 2 or 3 a day. And boy, I'd really like to get some sleep. And don't you know, then the wife comes home and says, let's go out to dinner. And you know what the priorities are, right? Definitely the club.
So does she serve paper again?
Let's put it this way. I was told that my sleeping quarters will be the garage if I don't shape up. We've heard that one at the club once before.
We all think you buy a heater for your garage.
Yeah, I could use it too.
Anybody want to pass the plate?
But seriously, if you have somebody that's not doing the job, usually it's not because they don't want to do it, it's because they can't do it. And the best way to approach them is as a friend and say, I realize that the job is a lot more than you probably thought it would be, but these things have to be done, and if you can't get them done, rather than hurt the club, why don't you step down and we can find somebody who can do it, or you may have to look at taking that job and splitting it in half. That's why the Glenside Club has 3 vice presidents, actually 4. 3 elected, 1 appointed. It's just too much work. We have, what, how many members have we got? About 250?
Yeah, 30 that regularly show up.
Yeah, at the meetings, but I mean, worldwide, we have almost 250. I know it's well over 200.
Was it in the last newsletter?
I don't think so. It might be, but that would be 2 months old too. We get new members every month. And I expect that we will get a whole lot of new members as soon as the Rainbow publishes their final issue. Quite honestly, I'll tell you, one of the reasons that our club grew as quickly as it did was first when we went down to Atlanta with our reach out program, that we decided, we took a vote, we decided that just like the Timex Sinclair groups, that somebody had to get in there and support the entire community rather than just a small local club. And we took a vote and we said, well, we're big enough, we've been around long enough, that we can probably do it. And we did. You know, we went, took a booth in Atlanta, went down there. Yeah, twice. Those are stories in themselves. That is one long trip. Yeah, as long as your truck is, they follow me.
I'll throw in a bit on structure that I think pretty much coincides with what you're saying, because our first 2 presidents, something about electing them president, they disappeared.
Which country was happening?
Well, I was a treasurer, so they went out broke, but so speak. One, it was personal problems. The other, the guy that, as he began to work with computers at work, the fun of the CoCo at home kind of died down and he died out, and then we just kind of interjected. We actually, in a way, were kind of the opposite structure. Since then, we've operated without the president. This is really, I don't know, it's not so much contrary, but the thing I've noticed about organizations is the guy that does the most is the guy that will have the most input.
He's your charismatic leader anyway.
Right, the title is just that, is a title. But we did interject, we have 12 guidelines. We don't necessarily have a charter. It is kind of a charter, but, and we interjected into that. If an officer doesn't perform his duties, he just goes out as an officer. Also, kind of an unwritten thing that we've always kind of adhered to, a person that came in hell-bent for election, so to speak, and great guns and this and that. That didn't make him an officer until he was in the group for a while. You saw his interest was there, and you saw that he was willing to work and help with the group, and those people generally found themselves getting volunteered, getting in as an officer. And another important thing on the structure that is real, I don't know, you can write it down, but it's a magic that works or it doesn't. I mean, Carl's touched on leadership, which is absolutely true. You've got to have a central, you've got to have a decision maker. As important is that body of officers. With us, there was a time when I ran too much of the club and just darn near quit.
It's called burnout.
Yeah. Like preparing this fest and so forth. There are just so many good ideas that come in, and that decision maker has got to listen to that body of the club that, well, we'll go to the whole group, but when we have officers meet, I had a different idea for the best logo. I think it was James that came up with this, which I think in the end is much nicer than what I was thinking about. But there's a lot of good ideas come in, and that decision maker has to act on those ideas, not necessarily his own. And that's why I say it's a magic. It takes that person that will listen to people. We are fortunate to have people. The Island Country CoCo is known as Terry Simmons. We've got a page, a correction page in our brochure on that. It's not Terry Simmons. Well, about the time I hit the burnout, I decided we're going to have meetings. Somebody else is going to present it. Because I was so busy with the newsletter. Gene Lund stepped in, John Schotner, our librarian, probably in the room setting up, stepped in to take over meetings. If you guys want to do it, we'll have meetings. He stepped right in and bam, off it went. Probably better than the ones that I organized. I'm close to the library, so I generally reserve the room and so forth, but that meeting could go with or without me. I'm usually there, but I don't know, we're fortunate to have those people working. It takes those, the reaching out, I don't know, I hit a point after the burnout when I said if people really interested in the color computer, they will pay and pay as members. And incidentally, we have no complimentary memberships. I pay dues. James Jones pays dues. Anybody in our club pays dues. We have had 2 complimentary memberships. One was Lion Paul, the other one was Ken Captain. And that was it. You are just not good enough to get into our club without paying dues. It's kind of an equalizer. But I just decided if people are interested in their CoCo, they're going to pay dues without the arm twisting. And I used to call and see somebody drop out, yeah, you got to stay in, yeah, this and that and the other thing. And I quit doing it, and fortunately, I don't have to. I don't know, we've got a good group, and hold the entry. But I quit. Now, as far as support, as far as I'm concerned, there isn't any if there's going to be support. There will be support because I just know too many people that are on their CoCos. Like I said, they're going to be on their CoCos. CoCo's going to be around for a long while. The question might be is where the support's going to come from, but it's going to be.
Well, support is a two-way street. Whether it's a club or whatever.
You need to have a sense of obligation to the community.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
definitely. But the community has to have a sense of obligation to the club as well. The members have to have a sense of obligation to the club. A club doesn't work without the members' input. You know, you have to give the input to the club. If you're not happy about the way the meeting is going, you know, if you want to see more RS-DOS instead of OS9, you have to tell somebody. You can't sit there and just be mad about it and say, well, I'm never coming again. It doesn't do you good. The only person you hurt is yourself directly. Indirectly, every other person that's in that room with you, because you're one less person supporting the community.
That's a backup system.
And as far as a structured organization, whether it's written down in stone or not, you have a structure.
Oh, yes.
You're the treasurer, you're not running the meetings, but you have people who run the meetings. So it's still a structured organization. And they know what they have to do, and you know what you have to do. And that's what makes your club work. You know, whether it's written down on paper or not, doesn't matter. But the delineation of jobs has to be there. You can't just have everybody running off helter-skelter in any club. Things don't get done that should be done, and two people are trying to do the same job at one time, and that doesn't work either. And we've run into a lot of that at various times in the Glenside because it is such a large club. So we felt that it would behoove us to put it down on paper exactly what everybody's job is. So that there isn't two people trying to do the same job and then something else not getting done at all. Quite honestly, there's a lot of demands on my time with the club, and I don't appreciate it when I have somebody else trying to do part of my job, and I'm trying to do it because my time is valuable. If you want to do that part of the job, fine, I'll give it to you, I'll delegate it to you. Go ahead and do it. But I hate to make a phone call to somebody about something and find out somebody else already called. You know, that's dumb. You're wasting my time, my money, my energy. And quite honestly, you know, that's part of where burnout comes from too. It's running around in circles. If you can structure your job and say, well, as an example, we have disc of the month. Okay? I've got disc of the month copied through the end of this year. Because last year I was doing it every month, and every month I was running right at the last minute. I've got to do 25 discs. What am I going to do? Well, this year, while I was on vacation, I got all the diskettes, sat down, copied them all for the year. Boy, was it nice. I go to the meeting, pick up a pack of 25 discs, and I'm done. And actually, it took me a lot less time, too, because the computer is all set up. I've got the program, backup lightning in there, and I do all the discs at once, all the labels at once, and I'm done. Now, probably save myself about 6 hours of time over the year or more by doing it that way. You know, that's part of what's being structured. Hopefully, I'm going to get a little more structured on some of the other things I do too. But like I said, you know, a structure doesn't have to be written down, and delegating the jobs doesn't have to be, you know, there is no set, okay, you're the president, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's basically, as long as all the jobs get done, the people that are willing to do them, that's the important thing. But to know who's going to do it, and be able to say, all of this has to get done in a certain time period, just like with the fest. And making sure it gets done. It seems like every day I think of something else with the fest. Gee, has that been done yet? This is our first fest in Chicago, too, that we're running. And boy, I can tell you, it's It's no picnic. There's always one other thing that you think of. Well, for me, it's in the middle of the morning because I work midnights. But for you, it would be in the middle of the night. You'll wake up. Oh, how about the T-shirts? Did anybody think about the T-shirts yet? Or tickets at the door? What are we going to do about that?
Will you be preparing a checklist, so next year we'll just have all these things written down?
I hope so. I just delegated that job, Eddie. Next year,
But you thought of it, you do it.
the next year, we are going to be looking more and more to the clubs, and I mean all the clubs, to support the users. So all I've got to say to the users is you've got to support the clubs. You know, everybody that's a member of the club, get your dues in there, get your input. You know, and every club that dies is that much less to support the community. So,
How about coming up with an idea that if you join a club, think about what you can bring to the club. What can I give back to the CoCo community? I've had a lot of hours sitting with that little stupid plastic toy, and it's going to be a lot more. And so,
actually, it's not that stupid a toy. It does exactly what you tell it to. It doesn't do what you want it to.
that's just about what I do sometimes. But you have to be prepared to not only come and acquire knowledge, which is why we want to get together, because you
President Kennedy said it best.
Yeah.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Well, ask not what your club can do for you. Ask what you can do for your club.
Right.
Right, definitely.
What you give will come back many times.
Oh, yes, I found that. Quite honestly, the Glenside Club hadn't started the outreach program
To give that?
gone to Atlanta, we probably would be, rather than the 50 or 60 members that we were at the time, we'd probably be down to about 25. The community is shrinking. But because we did that, we also got an article in Rainbow, which helped us grow and put our name on people's tongues. You know, besides all the members that we picked up. Basically, and it helps us support the community. You know, we're able to take a booth here. We've taken a booth in Atlanta also. So it's love to have been able to go to Northwest, but I don't think my wife will be too happy about that.
Free country.
Yeah,
Actually,
actually,
vacation country.
what we should do is get some of our members from that area that man a booth out there. But that's what it's all about.
Put that down on the list.
Yes. There's our secretary.
There he is.
And actually, we have, from Chicago, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. And out of the 6, 1, 2, 3 are on the board.
You come down to watch us stumble around so you'll know what not to do wrong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
Actually, you're doing very well.
yeah. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Whatever possessed you to do this?
Fort Orchard. I mean, they look at me like a small organization. I said, by gosh, but they could put one together. And then Atlanta, and I said, if they can put one together, I mean, you guys in Chicago, well, that's where Rainbow Fest was, and you had a first step into it. But I said, hey, the central organization, the central location we've got, I started getting this idea about the middle of last summer, and I did a lot of contact, a lot of talking. I talked to you, I talked to Atlanta, I talked to Port Orchard, and I might make a mention if there's a question in anyone's mind, like one group leading or whatever, or anything of competitive spirit. I haven't seen it in the CoCo community. The other clubs have worked very well with us. Port Orchard gave us a tremendous amount of helpful information, as did Atlanta. And even in publications, there's a certain part of the CoCo community that, as you talk about them joining or this or that, they kind of feel like they're competition. There's a certain part of the community that just kind of opens their doors, and there's a relationship goes there. And what we found, I mean, we've always been open to it. For some reason, last year we found it more open and reciprocal. We found working with other organizations, Rick's Disc, Uptimes Magazine, has worked tremendously for both of us. In other words, we can stand off and say, hey, we're great, we don't need you, and we'll just get all we need. I don't know, working together, we both grow faster.
And you hold the community together that way too.
Yeah, there's people wonder, you know, down the line, who's going to be the support? There isn't going to be any who. I'll also make this prediction. There isn't going to be who's going to be the support. There's going to be several support bases that are working together. I don't think there's going to be a central leader. There's going to be big guys like Glenside. Some consider us big and so forth. But Atlanta's going to be Atlanta. They're going to be strong. Port Orchard the same. And there are others. And these people are going to, they retain their individualism. They work together. Nobody tells anybody else what to do. I don't know. It's just, it's a fun community of people.
Well, you know, one of the things that I mentioned is that small local clubs, you know, do not necessarily detract from larger clubs. You know, and joining more than one club, there's no reason why you shouldn't. It's just like, I belong to Mid-Iowa, I belong to the Cook County Color Computer Club, which is a small club. I belong to Chicago OS9 User Group, which is also a small club. I belong to the Glenside Club, which is a larger club. You know, you turn around, you look at the different clubs, the sizes, doesn't matter. It's what are you getting out of those clubs? Well, each one of those clubs has different things, different people that you interact with. The Glenside Club takes most of my time. I get very little out of the meetings. I also get very little out of the newsletter. But I get an awful lot out of the people that I associate with. It's how I met Joel Hegberg, it's how I met Paul Tricatis, how I met Howard Ducky, Eddie Coons. I can't say that about Scott, indirectly Scott. But these are all people that have helped me, you know, with problems that I've had. I wouldn't have met them without the Glenside Club. And, you know, basically, that's how I see the Glenside Club, as being a very large organization that can help people get in touch with smaller organizations, you know, somebody local, and also put out the newsletter to help people nationally. And also, on top of that, we have a lot of people in our club that are knowledgeable, both hardware and software. If you're having a problem, chances are, if Tony Pedraza or myself or somebody else that's on the list can't help you, we can point you in the right direction. We have people that will rebuild your CoCo. We have people that will write the software to make you do what you want it to do. You know, and most of these people are more than willing to help you. So it all boils right back down to support. And a small local club doesn't have the base to draw for that support. Now, if you've only got 15 or 20 members, how many of them are really good hardware hackers? I'm not saying that there aren't clubs that have the whole thing, but some of them don't. You know, and, like the Cook County Club, there really isn't anybody in the Cook County Club that I would consider to be a really good hardware hacker, myself included.
Well, that was the original idea of our club, or kind of the goal and purpose. I don't work with databases, but I give people in from out of town, hey, we got this database and we want to do this, we can't figure it out. I don't work with databases, but I know this guy over here that uses that database. Give him a call, give him the number, and that's where the clubs really come in, because one guy just can't know it all. And I always tell people, first, join your local club.
Yes.
Then go for more support with the national tournament.
And one other thing I might just also interject, our club has always had a newsletter exchange. You send us a newsletter, we'll send our newsletter to your club. Feel free to copy it, distribute it. You can reprint articles as long as you mention that it came, who the author was first is most important, and then that it came out of CoCo 123. We appreciate that. There have been people that have reprinted articles with just the author's name. We don't really get too upset about it. You know, it's nice to see your newsletter's name mentioned, you know, because you did originally get the permission to print it and whatnot. But the important thing is that the information is getting out to the users. That's the way we look at it. We do like to have, when it's reprinted, that everybody be given credit. But, you know, join your local clubs, join the other clubs. That's where the support is. Yes.
Is there anybody,
Yeah, let's go.
anybody that's ever looked into a national central organization in charge of the whole thing, tie everything together? See, I'm very involved in the John Deere two-cylinder. I work at restoring them. And they have a very strong national, well, it's a worldwide organization. And what they have is individual chapters all over the country. And they're all tied together under this, international two-cylinder club.
Unfortunately, the only problem with that is you are going to run into the competition aspect where when somebody says, well, we want to give out chapters, et cetera, it will be seen as a group that's trying to take over the community. And we don't want to be seen as that. We've never had the desire to take over the community. We want to support the community. And the best way to support it is to
I just, I realize
Just
that,
put
but
the
I
support
just
there.
wondered about tying everything together
It would be
to
nice.
hook everything all up.
Yeah, it would be nice.
One club out here has certain things going on, another club has something else going on, but we don't know what's going on between them.
Amen.
Zodiac card. Alan RC. A few $100. I think it's gone down since I bought it. Yeah, it's always that way. Pretty decent sound.
Do you know where to get this?
Well, it's the California race.
Yeah, I don't know. Houston House, and go to scroll pointers. Well, I'm not sure if I scroll pointer scroll to you see a name you like. You see things like electrical engineering times where they'll write about the same guys. But, hey,
Find out. All right.
I'm not sure I'd say that. Yeah.
I've got a standard PC.
He's got 4 slots. No. Did away with Moines.
I sold my old controller a long time ago. Yeah, you can probably mine. I want it back. I bet.
Actually, the floppy controller you can
What?
take care of that. Just
How much?
one chip.
All you need to do is get rid of the ghosting by Andy. And then have it. So you just run two inputs to do and return an error. Yeah, I did all 3. I have 3 different models. I
Standard deluxe mouse.
which could generate the instant inflammability field needed to keep the space between the furthest stars, and in the end, they grumpily announced that such a machine was virtually impossible. Then one day, Stu, who had been left to sweep up the after a particularly unsuccessful party, found himself reasoning this way. If such a machine is a virtual impossibility, then it must logically be a finite improbability. All we have to do in order to make the system work exactly how improbable it is, then feed that data into the finite improbability generator, give it a fresh cup of really hot tea, and turn it on. He did this, and was rather startled to discover that he had managed to create a long sought-after infinite improbability generator on his dinner. It happened even more when just after he was awarded the galactic prize for extreme cleverness, he got lynched by a rampaging mob of respectable physicists who had finally realized that the one thing they really couldn't stand was a smart ass.
should have whatever you need. How about
Whoever gave us that, to tell you what it is. I got me listening. It's a hot excerpt. Is this the sound portrait? No. It's not. Oh, this way. It should be play yeah. If you want to run that sound board. Oh, that's the one you guys here. No, just
The problems in my moving, my UPS, is that I gotta have some place to ship it to.
We're gonna, a couple of us throw in 2 cents worth. We're talking basically about future of the CoCo. CoCo's had a very glorious past, and I think it's got some glorious future left. Rainbow is folding. Dave Myers is kind of folding back at least. Says he's closing doors, which is like another big vendor going down. And each time we see one of these go, we kind of feel ourselves getting lower and lower. And maybe somebody expects the bottom to fall out. That isn't going to happen. One thing I said in we've got an ad in that final rainbow that will be coming up, is there is right now support in the CoCo community, publications, various types, clubs. As Carl was mentioning, there's 4 national groups. There's a lot of support. I can tell you from our members, and I've just heard from person after person after person, and I don't know which of the 50 to say. I'd be quoting that says, and I quote, I am happy with my color computer. It does what I need, it does what I want, and I'm not going to put $1,000 into an IBM compatible or any other computer. I'm going to be using my CoCo. We have a lot of people saying that. I have no doubt of the CoCo's future. The question may be exactly what it will be, what kind, and how far it will go. Talking about present support, Uptime Magazine, JWT Enterprises, I think started maybe roughly, it looks like September '92. I'm going to pass these around, and why don't you just send those around. Every 3rd person keep one, because he sent those down to hand out. We have some more we'll be giving out for flyers tomorrow. Also, in your fest brochure, you'll notice a new entry. Well, JWT is also on a page in there. We've also got Farna Systems. At least it wasn't when the printer.
Yes, it is.
inside the back cover, the back.
And another.
Okay, inside. 68, World of 68 Micro. Frank down in Frank Schwager down in Georgia is going to start a magazine. I think most of us are smart enough to know that anybody is going to be dumb to try to replace Rainbow. He's not going to try to do that. If you don't replace something, what you do is you come up with something different, something people will like. He has talked to Marty Goodman. Marty Goodman will have a regular column. Regulars he's looking for in there: repackaging the CoCo, Hacker's Corner, Marty Goodman, C programming, PCB and OS9, beginner showcase, OS9 OSK answers, Matthew Joel Hedberg. telecommunications, micro news, swap shop. Looks like a pretty complete magazine. We've seen magazines start in the past, run for a while, and come to a roaring stop. Think we might want to think about some of this as to there are some things to look for to maybe try to slow this down. Also in there you'll see Rick's Disc. Rick's Disc is primarily RS-DOS. Well, Rick is dedicated to RS-DOS, whereas we are RS-DOS with OS9. Glenside is, I would call them OS9 with RS-DOS. Maybe kind of matches out the same way. And a number of other magazines. As far as, and I do hear even some publishers saying, well, maybe we need a central or someone to take the lead. They're not going to be a central. I mean, I think it's a pretty, it doesn't take a real prophet to look at the CoCo community. We've got some real nice support in place. We don't rely on Glenside for what to do. They don't rely on us, nor do we rely on Atlanta. Glenside does a real nice job without us, and vice versa. There's not going to be a central or there's not going to be a leader. There's going to be what there is. Several nice groups, probably several nice publications, doing a good job. Some of you will subscribe to several. You'll kind of pick and choose what fits your needs, and I think there's going to be an outflow to the bunch. Software, I see that continuing. There's going to be less of it, certainly. There's going to be less developers and so forth. It's going to be there. It's just like we don't have as much new software as what was coming out 3 or 4 years ago. We still have new stuff coming out. Gosh, there's going to be new things happening. There won't be as much. There will be support. Anyway, Carl, I'd like you to throw in a little bit. I'd like to hear from a couple of the others of you. And then we'll throw it open for questions.
Okay, well, I like the one thing you said about the clubs. You know, basically, that's one of the reasons why you want to join more than one club, is because each club has its own flavor. You know, they are going off into different directions. They cover different areas. You know, no one club does it all. What else is there to say? Publications. Knowing Frank Swigert personally, having talked to him, I think he stands a pretty good chance of making this magazine fly where the others died. I really do. He has a lot of energy. Anybody that can do as much as he's doing and still be in the armed forces, it demands a little bit of time. He has to have a lot of energy. I think he can do it. He's lined up some good people behind him. That's important. He's got Marty Goodman, he's got Joel Hedberg, and several other people lined up to help him with the magazine. He's not trying to do it by himself. He's being realistic about what he has to have as far as funds to publish it. Because I talked to him, I am a printer. I know what goes into publishing a magazine. A lot of people get into this, they don't realize the cost, and they turn around and say, where'd my money go? And then they turn around and look, oh, I spent so much on mailing, I spent so much on phone calls to the vendors trying to get advertising that never showed up. There's a million things that happen, but Frank seems to be going into this with his eyes open, so he feels he can do it. I hope he does. And my suggestion to anybody that wants a magazine in the future, better subscribe to the ones that you got right now, because that's it. Once they go, I don't see any more starting. Newsletters are not magazines. They never will be. Magazines can afford to hire people to write articles. Newsletters can't. When you're talking newsletter, you're talking users like you and me writing articles and submitting them. When you talk in the magazine, you're talking people like Harry Goodman being paid to write the article. It's the expertise, it's the knowledge. I'm not saying that there aren't users out there with the knowledge to go write an article. What I'm saying is you can't get it consistently, month after month after month. The future of the CoCo? Well, Timex St. Clair still has one heck of a strong user group. They've been gone for a long time. The Texas Instruments, they have a strong user group. They're still going strong, okay? There's no reason why we can't. It's all up to us. People sitting right here in this room are going to decide the future of the CoCo. You are the people that were dedicated enough to come out, come to this seminar. You know, hey, now the burden is on your shoulders. Everybody has to do a little bit. If a lot of people do a little bit, then nobody has to do a whole lot. That's all I've got to say. Get out there and support the CoCo. That's what they've been doing in the other areas.
John, why don't you tell us some about your SCG? Oh, there you go.
There's the future.
Well, I'm in real good shape to talk to anybody, but I'm very good in terrible materials. But I guess the concept is what the future of the CoCo. I'm a little biased in OS 9, and the easiest way still for people to get into OS 9 via the 6809, simply because it's still the cheapest machine around. I mean, everybody knows you want to go out and buy a 68,000 machine. It's going to cost you more than going out and buy a single dinky CoCo and a single floppy, and at least getting familiar with this operating system, even with that. I'm also biased in thinking that the future is going to be served a lot by networks. I have my own network package. It's called STGNet. The development on it has been rather slow because if I have to repeat myself, and that means I have to work for people, which means I can't spend my time working on things I want to do like STGNet. The neat thing about networks such as that, for example, is already, I think we agreed on somewhere between a dozen and 20 nodes currently running on CoCo, on CoCo 3s, running OS 9, littered around the country. It seems to be a collection out in California. And they're all tied together, and up in Canada too, where people can call into that bulletin board and be in contact with people around the country. I think that as that expands with the release of newer versions of that software and stuff, we're going to see that, if nothing else, bringing the CoCo community together a little bit more. Because it's sure a lot easier to sit down at your machine at home and type up a message to somebody and let the machine worry about getting it to that person rather than have to call them up and catch them at home and worrying about how to get it to them. It's also neat because it's our own network as opposed to having to pay for CompuServe. Or there's certain people that are on CompuServe, certain people are on Delphi, and other people are on something else. And everybody's on the same network. And we have one of our own. Maybe everybody will get on it. I don't know. I know that's about all I have to say.
We and a friend got together, and we were going to start a company because he had developed a bulletin board program, and we thought we could market it in some other programs. And at the same time, we started thinking, well, gosh, Rainbow's 128 pages, it's going to be gone in 6 months. It's just, this is the end. This is like the last year. We better get in on this. Rainbow's not having their fest anymore. Radio Shack's not bringing out anything new. This is the end of our machine. We may have only one more year left. So we said, well, what if we could get all these programs that are off the market, and talk to the authors and start selling them. And we had this great idea. Unfortunately, Dave also had the great idea and had the money to make it happen. And so all of a sudden, when we lost False Off supporting Rainbow Fest, and there was no way for us to get together, Dave stepped in and started having the CoCoFEST in Atlanta. And that's how Subby the software got into the color computer community. and everybody was so glim and dismal. Oh gosh, there's not 5,000 people at this show. There's only 30 vendors here. Rainbow's 128 pages. This is it. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're dead. Till Rainbow had their one final Chicago show. And so they had their final Chicago show. It was probably going to be the last one. And Rainbow went down to 96 pages, and that was it. It was going until there was the second CoCoFEST. But they had the second CoCoFEST the next year in 1991, and Rainbow got smaller, and there were fewer vendors. There was like 16 vendors there, something like that, and that was it. But then they had the Pacific Northwest CoCoFEST and the third CoCoFEST that year, and you know, but then that was it. 1992 was it. There was nothing else. There was the first annual last Chicago CoCoFEST. When we got there, it was crowded in a tiny little room, and it was all, you know, everybody was crowded up there, and things didn't go, and vendor turnout wasn't there, and people weren't there, and that was it. 1992 was probably the end. They were talking about this. That was the end of the color computer. Rainbow was down to like 32 pages. You know, we had the OS9 Underground starting, and it took like 50 subscriptions opening weekend. Well, that's neat. We're going to have this little tiny book thing to keep you occupied, but that's pretty much it. That's the end of it. And then they said there was going to be, you know, CoCoFEST in Iowa. Okay, so we've had that one. And there's going to be a second annual one in Chicago, and they're planning the fourth one in Atlanta, and there's the Pacific Northwest CoCoFEST or something in Seattle, and they had one in Australia. And the problem here is, for a dead machine, I should have to drive a lot. That's the only one. But see, okay, here's what the deal is. If we give up, then we are gone. I mean, I used to be one of the biggest supporters of Rainbow Magazine, and finally I had to give in and say, well, look, you know, there's nothing we can do, and I stopped my subscription and just quit trying to support it. About 6 months ago, I was in touch with Ira at Rainbow, and we had a formula. I had an idea that could have saved Rainbow. We could have gotten enough people involved in there and revitalized it, but I never followed through because I realized that probably the same thing would happen. I mean, they've got bigger things to do. They've got, you know, a big publishing corporation, and they're in the PCM magazine and the scorecard and all that. They don't really need us anymore. He was mainly doing it for what little respect he had for the market. So it just didn't seem like anything. That's why I think it's great we're having these fests. I'm glad to see some people showing up for it in this new area. I'm a little jealous that Chicago gets all the OS9 people from around the world when we're here where Microware is, but that's okay. What's going on? As far as the clubs go, that's fine. There's all these little clubs around the world. If it wasn't for this here, I never would have known about the Iowa and County Club. I wouldn't know who these guys are. I still don't know their initials. I hear that and I'm like, who? You're with who? Because I didn't know. So I never would have known that they have this upgrade newsletter and that they had this fest unless I was exposed to it through another gathering in Atlanta. So, you know, either you've got to join them all or we've got to see about these clubs. And I think there's like a free information thing going on right now where like Glenside lets other people put in free ads and all that. And I'd like to see all these clubs that try to get together and have meetings and have newsletters have a page in each newsletter where they have the same redundant information each month. Other sources for support. List the contacts. It doesn't have to be an advertisement. List contacts in the clubs and main officers of people that have newsletters. You know, Glenside monthly newsletter sponsors Fest in Chicago. So-and-so is over here, so-and-so over here publishes this little magazine or whatever. That way, say you subscribe to, you're a member of Glenside and you get it, and it's about time, and something happens and all the Glenside members go off and buy like 486 machines or something. So Glenside ceases publication and doesn't exist anymore. Okay, it won't happen, but if something, you just subscribe to Glenside. It was the best thing in your Chicago area or wherever, and that's the only one you subscribe to. And then all of a sudden, you're just like, well, I have no support. Nobody's out there. But if we keep that information open, you can sit there and say, oh gosh, well, I've got another place to go. We've got to keep in touch. The STG network is a great thing. Any network is a good thing, but I'm afraid that we're going to end up dividing ourselves, and we're going to have these hubs of users here and these hubs of users here. And what's going to happen is these guys are going to come up with some radical new utility or game or word processor, and there's not going to be a nationwide magazine. And these guys all like Delphi, and these guys over here are all on FidoNets, and we're never going to know. We're not going to have this information exchange, and that's going to hurt us. So we need to get the clubs continuously, you know, trading newsletters, keeping their members informed. That way, people like me that won't or can't afford to subscribe to every newsletter out there can still know what's going on. Subby the Software will try to be at every fest forever. I mean, it's 3 years after we wrote our first little thing sitting on our table that said, what is Subby the Software, and talking about how glim things look in the CoCo market. 3 years. When Radio Shack discontinued the color computer, that was the end. But they hadn't made anything new for it in like 2 years, except for a new joystick which worked on their PCs and a couple of ROM packs. And so it was discontinued, and we're still here. The Texas Instrument guys, they're still here. As long as we want to be playing with our machines and we have something to do with them, I think most of us are going to be here. You know, there's going to be a certain point where we're going to get fed up, like when your hard drive crashes and you didn't realize that thing and you just want to just throw it away and do something else. But we got to stick with it. Those of you that don't have a way to get on a modem and get on a net, I strongly advise everybody to get a modem, get everybody you know on there. If you want the 2020 plan, $20 a month, $10 a month, get on Delphi. If you don't have Delphi in your area, spend $4.95 a month and get on Genie. Electronic mail is free. I'm the sysop on the Genie for the Tandy area. We have virtually no message activity, 2-3 messages a month, that's it. But mail is free. If you want to be kept informed, sign up to Genie, spend your $4.95 a month. I will send you mail, which is free, unlimited usage to get mail and keep informed. In fact, I have an underground mailing list of CoCo users. We got about a dozen CoCo users, and we pass messages back and forth, free. No monthly, don't have to spend any money. And I have to promote Genie, and I'm not getting to do that, so that's what I'm doing now.
You said Genie does have access to internet.
Yes, you can send and receive internet messages.
If you're willing to pay for access to the CoCo list on the internet, that's yet another.
Right. And it's the thing about that, we've got a great electronic way, a paperless way to keep in touch, but we got to get everybody on there. There's all these guys that are going to be running ribs forever. Everybody's going to be part of FIDO. That's great. Look at me. I don't have a FIDO board anywhere in my area. That doesn't do me a bit of good. I have no idea what's going on in FIDO. The internet and the CoCo list, that's great. I don't have access to it. I can't even get on Delphi from where I am. There's a Genie.
You do have access to the internet.
Well, no, because as a sysop, I can't use it because they reserve it for paying customers. Genie tries to treat the customers better than the sysops, right? But the thing is, I mean, there's something out there. It would be great if we could link everything together. And since people are going to be on something, people are always going to be on Delphi, I'm always going to be on Genie, and so forth and so on, we maybe need to see about getting an electronic newsletter together. And I have nothing better to do. I have to spend an hour on Genie about every night, checking things and just doing stuff. I'm on there every night. If people wanted to get me information, if somebody, I can get representatives of all the various clubs on Genie and give them a mail account. Okay, and if they want to send me the information, I'll compile it, and we'll figure out a way to get it out on the different networks or something. We need to centralize, and we got to keep people informed.
Many of the message bases, two of the FIDO lists, there's another list somewhere, and the CoCo list are all archived in various places.
Okay.
Many of them on FTP sites. And all we've got to do is get more cross-links to spread the information farther. Several of the network hubs are already all tied together by people. Not all of them are.
Well, if
we just need to keep getting more people into it and get it bigger.
We get STG, which can go to the internet mail.
Right.
Delphi can go to internet mail, and we can get them all linked together and get these doorways open. That's going to be the great way to go. But the simple thing is, as long as we keep showing up for these events, there will be events. As long as we keep using our machines and spending a little money when there's something to buy, there'll be something to buy. As long as we keep believing in the machine and using it, there'll be things to buy. I spent 2.5 years selling DOS machines. Doesn't make me want to run out and buy one. I got a laptop. I use it as a dedicated terminal. You know, I mean, I've been with the color computer now for like 12 or 13 years or whatever, 12 years, and I'm not going to leave. We just have to keep the communication going. We have to stay in touch, because if something happened, like, you know, if something happened, how are we going to know? If there's a big meeting somewhere and I don't subscribe to Uptime, and that's where the ad was about the 12th annual Chicago last CoCoFEST.
Cool.
Well, the way you guys are going, I'm talking about, 5 years from now, man. But we got to keep in touch. That's the only thing that really matters. We got to keep in touch, because if we're still here, I mean, this is not the largest seminar room we've ever had. There's people here. There's people here that drove 16 hours to be here, and as long as that type of problem still exists.
When do we meet in Texas?
Texas? Yeah.
We're working on it.
I want one in Fort Worth.
When are we going to have one?
Have one.
We'll work with it.
Fort Worth, can we attack Candy?
Oh yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Take them by storm.
Getting spread too thin, would it be a better idea to get down to 1 or 2 instead of having 7 or 8 that, I'll subscribe to this one and this one, somebody else will go to this one and this one, and somebody else will go to this one and this one. So you got 3 people here, but only 1 person for each one of them. I wonder, wouldn't it be better to try and consolidate a little bit?
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me too. The other thing is that the pool of expertise you're talking about with lots
Yeah.
of magazines,
It's
pretty
spread
thin.
way too thin. I mean, I would love to read any article that a lot of these guys write, but I don't know all the magazines they write for. So I may not ever hear these great ideas they come up with just because I picked the wrong magazine to subscribe to.
Yep.
And then, like you said, I can't subscribe to 10 magazines. Excuse me, I just can't afford that.
Time and money.
Yeah. Yeah, there's...
A good point. Also, I'm kind of steering a lot of magazines, subscribe to everything. I wouldn't want to give that advice out. Matter of fact, I might kind of go the other way, because every time a magazine starts up with just a great fun idea, or even some of them a little more serious than that, and they go a little ways, because the downside over on the receiving end of the magazine is it's real easy to pyramid. It's real easy for, like us, to build subscriptions, and we may hit a peak point of X users, and we got dollars to put out these magazines, but hey, what if we decide not to put any more out tomorrow? And that happens, and the thing, every time it does happen, it leaves a lot of disenchanted people.
Yeah, I've got subscriptions money out there that I'll never see again because I've subscribed to a magazine the week before it died. Or something. And I'm sure that's happened to probably everybody in here that subscribed to some magazine and died the next issue later. And it's like, that really gets on your nerves because then your money's going out. You don't want to subscribe to these magazines coming up because you don't know if they're going to be here much.
I think a year and a half of Rainbow still do.
You can never completely control it. I've wondered if there might not be a set of guidelines that basically Glenside, ourselves, a couple of the other going magazines, and so forth, might subscribe to that would, like I say, you're never going to be able to control it. I mean, a guy may come on hard times and, you know, things happen. But yet there are things that do happen, like a guy decides to quit publishing a magazine and say, well, you guys got so many subscriptions, I'm turning it over to Joe Blow over here, and he's going to finish it out. And Joe Blow says, well, hey, that sounds great. Matter of fact, this happened with a magazine. And he puts out one or two, and then he decides it's not such a great idea, and then pretty soon gets passed around again.
Yeah, that's happened quite a bit.
Maybe putting out a policy on this, that it's not that we can tell somebody putting out a magazine that they need to do that, but we might set a code of standards and they say, we will observe these standards. And that's making a contract through the mail when they put those in there. I don't know, there's some guidelines that can kind of point to responsibility, even though more guarantee a magazine is going to keep going than any business that starts up. But there is a downside to this. I don't know, I have a little different view. I don't say subscribe to support the CoCo market. Subscribe because there's some darn good magazines out there that'll help you. Glenside's got some good stuff in the magazines. That's why you should subscribe to it.
Yeah, but there's right now, what, 8 or 10 different of these magazines, and at 18, 20 bucks a pop, that's 200 some bucks a year.
Exactly right.
In order for you to get everything, because you just don't know. I mean, his magazine might be great one month, but the next month, 2 or 3 people were late with the article, and it's just a half a magazine.
That's where you look around and you decide, hey, this one seems to be more of this one seems to be more of that. You look at it and you decide, and attrition, the good old American way of competition, that thing which pleases the people is going to survive, and that thing which turns a lot of people off won't. We don't want to stop that.
The problem is that if they're spread too thin, none of them might hit critical mass, and they'll all just get cleared away where if we had fewer, maybe.
Yeah, maybe 2
one
or
would
3
hit critical
magazines,
mass,
one
yeah.
for RSDOS, one for
Well,
OS.
good.
The one thing that everybody is kind of missing here, though, is the people that are putting out the magazines are doing this for a reason. And
other
than now, I'm talking magazines, not newsletters.
Right,
Okay.
yes.
The people that are doing this are doing it to make money. And there's no way that you or I or anybody else can tell these people, well, you guys ought to combine, because they each feel that they have the best product to offer the market.
Market will decide.
The market will decide it, yes. But they each feel that they are doing it the right way, and that guy over there is doing it wrong, and that's why they're going to start their own. If they thought the best one was on the market, then they wouldn't start one.
I think both of you guys have touched on a point I was going to make. One thing we got to keep in mind here is that this, you guys both said it, that basically the best will survive. We don't have to worry about consolidating these magazines, because the ones we don't like will die. We are the people giving them money, and the subscribers, the advertisers know that if their ad isn't going to be read, they're not going to advertise, and that's going to leave us with probably one or two magazines here. I'd say probably in about a year or so, and they're going to do all right. Be careful where you send your money, but take a look at everything that's out there.
Yeah, but what about like if I subscribe to one and I don't like it, and I try another one and I don't like it, and then I just get fed up and don't know about the third one that's up and coming because I'm tired of spending money to find out.
Yeah, you
Okay.
spend $40 to find
That's the newsletters. They need to keep us informed and tell us what to subscribe to.
That's right.
Look for trial. We offer a sample newsletter. Farm Systems is offering a trial subscription. Look for samples, look for trials. Look for trial subscriptions. No, don't buy $180 worth of newsletters, magazines here and there and say, oh, well, this one here, I wish I'd have got that first. But look for trial subscriptions. And you've got, okay, Omaha might put out a newsletter, Kansas City might turn out a newsletter. They don't want to combine their different groups. But,
One other thing that I might mention, this is where your clubs come in too, okay? We do product demos and reviews. I'm sure you guys do too. If you guys are interested in the magazines, ask your club. Out of a club that has 20 members, okay, I'm willing to bet that you have just about every one of those magazines covered. And you can ask the other people, how is that magazine? Bring it in, let me look at it.
Spread the information over.
Right. Ask your club. If the magazine is really poor and it doesn't have any good articles, no advertising, and all it is an advertiser out there trying to sell his products to you, you don't want that magazine.
But if you find one you like, don't read someone else's copy, subscribe to it, because otherwise it'll die and then you can read it.
And then, like Bruce said, put it on Fido, put it on Delphi. Let
It's
other
like
people know.
shareware. Okay, a magazine our market right now is going to be like shareware. Okay, yes, definitely. Try it. Read somebody else's copy before you go and subscribe to it. But if you like it, don't keep reading their copies. Subscribe yourself, or that magazine is going to fold a lack of subscription.
On that same topic, that brings up the point with shareware. There was a recent comment on the MM1 Tech on Fido. Steven Seneca did it. He's got a program out called M-Play, and I don't know how many people have seen it, but it's a kind of a nifty little little utility. And his comment was basically how disgusted he was that nobody was sending him money, and he had the attitude like he just wasn't going to put out any more shareware. And I think it's a great utility. I sent him the $15 registration that he wanted. I thought that was a reasonable request. Maybe if he's got an attitude like that, if more people have an attitude like that, that they just, well, it's just not worth it, I'm just not going to do it, that kind of stuff, we need to try and turn around too and get everybody to start supporting the shareware. Because on the CoCo too, everything's going
depth right there.
Yeah.
Well, that's where idealism meets reality, and too often clash. My own view of shareware, I put out home pack shareware a couple of years. Am I doing so, and this is a personal feeling for me, I suppose if more authors had this feeling, there would be more shareware. Not that I had a choice, I could keep using it. I think it's a terrific program. A lot of people have told me they thought so. Okay, you're going to use it, and you're not going to pay me 30 or 50 bucks. But you know what? I would rather you use it and see it and enjoy. I've got hours and hours and hours in this thing.
I would rather you would at least use it and appreciate it, never give me a dime. Maybe meet me one day and say thank you, or maybe never. But I'd rather that see some daylight, so to speak, than like a dog with his bone that doesn't want it, but just go bury it someplace so nobody else can have it. Now that was my view of shareware, and I'll tell you, shareware, ultimate term, I think, is a real good example of shareware return. I talked with the author on that, and the estimation is for every 30 people that use the program on a regular basis, one will send in a reasonable requested free fee. You're just not going to get your fair dues with shareware. I don't know, it's the attitude of the author.
You also need the people, though. Some people say shareware, send as much as you want, and I like that better. Or even if they suggest a price, send in and say, hey, you wanted 15 bucks, I'm sorry, I think this is worth 5, here's my 5. In other words, I like it, but you need to do better if you want more money. Because you get a feedback, you know, hey, somebody likes it, they don't like it enough, or whatever. Or just give them feedback. Hey, I saw your program, thought about it, but nah, you're not quite there yet.
I think.
Or hey, your program stinks.
I don't know that that's such a bad idea. At least the author is getting feedback, which might be an awful lot better. Then we've got a guy in our club, very good programmer, put out a product, and we've gotten some feedback, and we've gotten some bad feedback. We've learned something from it. But the author right now, along with his personal problems, is thoroughly and totally disgusted. He feels that it's not worth his time. And we're trying to convince him to carry on because he's the man in charge of it, and he's the one that's got the next modules to put out. But we're trying to get some kind of feedback for him so that he's got a little incentive to keep on. And even if you got nothing more than, gee, I like this, or I have a problem with that, if you heard back from it. So even if you don't plan to send money for something, for God's sakes, send the guy a note. If you're using it, if you put it on your system and you use it, send at least a letter or even mail. A postcard.
Yeah,
just say,
electronic
hey,
mail
it's good.
through the network.
You'll do his ego a lot of good, and if a guy's got the brilliance to write one thing, even if it's given away, he will write the next one if he feels good about it.
Yeah, I think it's positive. I think it's any feedback, and he thinks he's made a useful contribution to the CoCo community.
Well, the positive feedback does your ego good, and the truth helps you be a better person.
I will say the few checks I get, the ego boost is worth a lot more to me than the bucks. Carl?
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing about shareware. Ricky Adams has basically the same attitude you do. You can't worry about who doesn't pay you for the software you're using. But it was kind of funny because I had contacted Rick about including that with our new member disc, to make sure that he wouldn't get upset even though it is shareware, that we were distributing it. And he said, go ahead and do it. 3 months after the fest, he left me some mail on Delphi. And he said, the best thing I ever did was let you distribute that. I've gotten more checks in 3 months than I've gotten in 3 years.
I think one thing,
with it being distributed through the club to members all over the country.
I'd like to point out here that if you're an author in any market, the CoCo or even MS-DOS, shareware is not a real good way to make money. GNU is are basically one guy that makes shareware. Actually, I think it's mostly freeware, isn't it?
Freeware.
But the guy is broke. Okay, you can't make money selling shareware, and you got to be realistic about that. I think the key here, if you want to put a good product out there for everybody to use, and you want to see your name up in lights, give it away, freeware. Okay. Or do the shareware thing or suggested price, but don't worry about people not sending you money. If you want to make money, offer a good product at a reasonable price, and a reasonable price for us is not $300 or it'll depend on what you get. I mean, we're users here, and 15 bucks, 30 bucks, 50 bucks, 79, 99. That's where your supply and demand is gonna taper off big time right there to 99 bucks. I don't know many people in this room that would shell out $100 bucks for a piece of software unless it did everything. He'd clean your oven and make toast and everything like that. So if you want to make money, just offer a reasonable or a good product at a reasonable price, and you know there's going to be a little pirating going on, but you're not going to get a 30-to-1 return. I mean, it's not going to be like shareware where you don't. I mean, a lot of times if I use something shareware and I don't feel like I'm going to use it, I mean it's like, you know, shoot, I've got it. It's shareware. I don't feel bad about not sending this guy money, but I would not pirate something and sit there and use it. You know.
Releasing demos that are kind of like just, you know, they don't do everything. They just give you a good glimpse that you can't save or something like that.
Yeah, that's the best one.
Those
You
work
can't save.
a lot. Those work really good.
That's what PC people do.
Yeah.
I'd like to
It's
interject
your 3
something
levels.
on,
One
on authors
You gotta
too.
pay.
People want to sell their products. We continually get flyers and stuff, like an author sends me something and says, like, you know, will you use the resources of your club to try to sell my product to bring me as much money as possible? Well, will you join our group? It's $10, it's $12. I know one author, I'm not going to use names. We had already sold I had sold several $100s worth of the software. I had promoted with reviews several $100s of the software. I said, well, did you ever think about maybe joining Mid-Island Country CoCo? I thought the phone went dead. And there's been this view that unless you advertise in Rainbow, it isn't worthwhile. Well, I'll tell you, from our little ads in Uptimes magazines, if we were a profit-making organization, we've got a heck of a response from them. Evidently, he's got a response from us. I know Rick's has, and vice versa. And these ads, of course, they don't cost $300 or $500. But I think authors, I wish we had a bunch of software vendors here, because they need to get off their duffs, invest themselves a little bit, get the word out themselves, get their name out there. They'd have sales.
Also, if you're a vendor, I mean, if you're a software person, you're not going to be able to make it. I mean, not even thinking about these fests, but there's nothing wrong with letting somebody else market your product. I mean, it's crazy to think you, as an individual who does this, I don't think there's many CoCo or OS9, well, or hobbyist OS9 or OSK programmers that are solely programming in OS9 as their means of eating. And if you want to make some money, I think you ought to go ahead and let somebody else market your product. There's nothing wrong with. I mean, look at CoCo Pro. They were, I mean, in our eyes, they were successful. You know, I mean, they had everybody's stuff. And I would, if I wanted to go get something, I would go to CoCo Pro. And if they didn't have it, I'd start looking for it elsewhere, because you know that's the most likely thing.
I understand pizzas are about here. I don't know if we've learned anything except for take a look around before you leave. There's a lot of magazines. Go ahead.
I wanted to go back to the magazines for a minute. Hasn't Rainbow consistently said for the last several years that the reason the magazine is going down is because the advertisement, the people that advertise in that magazine have reduced in number? And he's always said, well, he gets at least one subscription every day. He's never had a day go by when he didn't get a subscription in the mail. And yet, he's going downhill. Why?
Because
is a magazine supported by advertising dollars or subscription dollars?
Both.
Advertising. Okay? Advertising. So, you tell me. I've heard comments here that you don't want to see all this advertising in the magazine. Well,
no, I think they don't want a magazine, they want a newsletter.
You want to see advertising in the magazine.
I am a printer. I work for Donnelly's, world's largest commercial printer. And I will tell you right now, working with publishers daily, any professionally done magazine, 90% of its revenues come from advertising. The subscription barely covers distribution, period. That means mailing it to your house and the work that's done before it goes to your house at the printing house, okay? We have to sort them, separate them, package them for the post office, okay? Believe it or not, the printer or the binder does 90% of the post office's work, yet they do not give the publisher more than 3 cents off of what you could sell, what you could send that magazine for.
Well, if you don't do the work, you can save 3 cents.
No, they will not accept it. They will not accept it. The post office will not accept bulk mail like that. They will not say, you can't bring in a skid
Once you
full
call
of
it
this
bulk
stuff.
mail, that's right.
But what I'm saying is, it does not matter. They will not accept this large, okay, let me put it this way. How are you going to get your product after I've printed it, okay, this 1,000 magazines, how are you going to get it to the post office? You're a publisher now, okay? Are you going to come over with your car, put them in your car, and take them 500 at a time? You've got 5,000 magazines to mail out, okay? What I'm saying is the post office doesn't give the publisher any break on postage. The publisher is locked in because it is such a large quantity that he has to get rid of. And don't forget, Fallsoft doesn't just do Rainbow, okay? If all they were doing was Rainbow, and they were cutting back and cutting back and cutting back, they could have cut the cost. But Rainbow is one of their magazines, one of their titles. And they are a business. They're in business to make money. And unfortunately, it is not economically feasible to keep Rainbow going.
You can run a lot of opinions, and it's always easy for us to go out here in Iowa, down in Texas, and say, well, Lonnie Falk should do this, he should have more of this, less of that, and yeah, he could have reformatted another magazine and this and that. I think really, and I've talked with him, I've talked with people, I think Lonnie carried this magazine 6 months at least, if not a year, beyond what is really what Rainbow Magazine, what Fallsoft Publishing Corporation would call an interesting, profitable thing. I think the last 6 months to a year has been strictly Lonnie's dedication. I don't know, you can say, well, I would like to see more of this, more of that. Yeah, there's things I'd like to be seen different, but gosh, you can sit and watch football play and say, well, the right end should have went this way and the play might have been better, but that's easy to say later. Lonnie, one thing we mentioned in our ad, he's been a magazine that started up on a shoestring, ran to the biggest, he outlasted all the others. There's been a little disagreement here and there, and you can't please everyone. He's a person that I think, well, like stated in the ad, Rigo Shack sold us the hardware, Rainbow put the CoCo in our hearts. These shirts we wear, the long sleeves are a little heavier. These are $17 shirts. What I would like to ask, our membership, I'm sure we could ask, and our club could chip in, and I'd like to send Lonnie one of these shirts, put his name on it. Rather than our club do it, I think it would mean more to Lonnie. I'd like to pick up 17 $1 bills as we could as you go out. When we get to 17, we'll stop, and that will buy Lonnie and a shirt, and that will be from everyone at the fest.
You got one right here. You got another one here.
Since I got every rainbow there is, I'll put one.
If you're going to do any plans of including the, if you're going
Maybe I can make money on it.
I'll wait to see it. I'll have one.
It'll be the last.
Nothing but best wishes. If anybody wants to get the magazine,
maybe I'll be number 18.
I'll give you my book.
Well, 13.
I really don't have $1.
Yeah, one of mine is 15.
I'll take 5.
17, stop. I think that's a
Well, I'm kind of sick, so if I sound like a cork up my nose, I do. So, well, let me say first of all that what I say is not to be construed as anything from my career. This point of view, this is everything we're going to talk about today is strictly my personal experiences. The topic is OS9, a single language programming.